I work second shift at my job, so I don't end up leaving until around 11 p.m. I like the shift well enough, considering I usually stay up ridiculously late playing Halo with my friends or surfing through Tumblr or 9gag. The only problem the schedule creates is when I need to go shopping for some groceries in the middle of a 5-day stretch. I mean, I get basic stuff on payday weekend, but come on. I'm a bachelor who lives mostly off of fast food. Sometimes I run out of stuff at home between pay periods. The problem is there aren't a lot of places open past 9 p.m., especially in my town, which is in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. Our one claim to civilization, thank God, is a Walmart supercenter on the outskirts of our town. Maybe it's part of the next town over, I'm not really sure, but whatever the story, it had become something of a paradise for a guy like me. I'm sure once I'm settled down, I will probably abhor even the sight of top ramen, but right now, I can get 3 meals for less than $1 burger at McDonald's. The night I'm going to talk about was my last night going to this Walmart, and maybe my last trip to any Walmart ever. It was Wednesday night, and I just finished a long string of death matches with my friend from upstate. Despite the usual string of uninspired insults from the other players, and the fact that I and my friend were so often and so thoroughly decimated during the course of the night, I was feeling pretty damn good about myself. I felt like celebrating. And my usual 3:30 a.m. meal of cup of noodle did not sound like an appropriate feast. After all, I was the victor. Or, at least I was somebody who, after 15 sound thrashings, had managed to arrange a last-minute victory in our last match. My friend and I had decided to quit while we were ahead. So I decided to go to Walmart, of course. I would pick up some microwavable meal that would undoubtedly not taste nearly as good as it looked on the box, and then go to bed since I had to be up in about 8 hours. At least, that was the plan. I'm not going to describe the place to you. Everybody has been in a Walmart, and every Walmart has pretty much the exact same layout. Sometimes it's flipped, but still. Groceries and deli on one side, toys, home, and automotive on the other, clothes in the middle, and electronics in the back. Now, what some of you may not be as familiar with is the look of the place around 4 a.m., when the store is mostly empty except the associates and the other losers like myself who are up that late. Now, you may have done late night runs when it's kinda quiet, but in a small town place like this, about 3 hours before the dawn, the store is a virtual ghost town. I didn't mind that. I mean, it meant no lines, no distractions, and no attempting to weave my way through a bunch of idiots who insist on blocking the aisle with their carts. I didn't even bother grabbing a handbasket. I was only going to get one thing. And besides, frozen food was right next to the checkout counters. When I turned into the aisle that had the frozen dinners, I saw another guy standing opposite end. He was covered in dirt, his head matted and filthy. He was wearing brown rags that may have at one point been a t-shirt and blue jeans, but were enveloped in the same rot that was once on his face. He didn't seem to take any notice of me as I began looking through the selection, and after a few moments of absorbing his unusual appearance, I stopped paying attention to him. Now, for somebody who lives on cheap stuff, I'm also a notorious picky eater. I only mention this to explain why I was in that aisle for more than a minute. After a few moments, the man started hitting his head gently against the glass door on one of the freezers. It was just enough to make a low thump with each contact, and his pace began slow and deliberate, taking time with each knock. It was at this point that I noticed he was carrying a handbasket, but I couldn't make out what was in it from here. But whatever it was, it certainly wasn't groceries. I thought I saw something that looked like a plastic bag, but I wasn't about to approach the man. I finally decided upon a small microwavable pizza. I reached in to grab it, and the sound of the man's head thumping against the freezer stopped. When I pulled it out, I noticed that the man had moved closer to me, still facing the freezer and carrying the handbasket. He was maybe a few yards from me. Once I noticed him, he began thumping his head against the freezer again, this time slightly harder and much faster, his pace now struggling to keep up with that of my racing heart. I was able to see into the handbasket now, and it was definitely something wrapped in a plastic bag. There was a thick, dark liquid around the outside of the bag, and the shape was beginning to make me queasy. I decided to move before the guy got any closer to me. I rushed back over to the checkout counter where the night guy was lazily reading a People magazine. I paid for my pizza then, and feeling some obligation, decided to let the guy know about the man in the aisle. He shrugged and told me he would go check him out, but we get a lot of strange people here this hour. I went home, didn't even bother eating the pizza I'd ventured out to buy, and just fell asleep watching the late-night reruns of Friends. I awoke around noon to the midday news after a few national news stories and more of the World Cup news that I couldn't care less about. They got to the local news. My blood went cold when the reporter began describing it in nauseating detail about an attack on the night worker at Walmart. He said that the attacker had come in and cut the man's head clean off with a machete. A police officer had come in to get some late-night shopping done himself and was able to catch the man who had done it. The man was found with that handbasket he was holding, and in it was the head of another customer wrapped in a plastic bag. So no, I won't be going back to Walmart anytime soon.